Hello everyone and welcome to yet another game you've all requested. We're still at round 2 and on day 2 of the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz event. This is the Rapid section. It's Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces against Levon Aronian, the leader after day 1. And there's no mystery why you all requested this game. It's a very nice game, so let's just dive straight into it. Magnus just lost his game against Fabiano Caruana in the previous round, so let's see how he bounces back. He opens with d4, with knight to f6 by Levon, knight to f3 with d5, and now not going for some c4 action, but rather bishop to f4. Magnus goes for the London system. With e6 by Levon, and now e3. With bishop to d6, and Magnus retreats with bishop to g3. It is possible to play something like knight d2 and allow black to capture on f4 to double your f-pawns. Then you will have a nice e5 outpost for your knight, but at the highest level bishop to g3 is the main line. So this is what Carlsen plays with castles by Levon, knight bd2, and now b6. c5 is the main line, Levon opts for b6. So we have c3 by Carlsen, bishop to b7, fianchettoing the light square bishop, and now bishop to d3, a nice square to develop your light square bishop. Queen to c2 is coming from where you will pressure h7. And here we have knight b to d7. Knight e4 right away is possible, but Levon wants to keep his options open. So first knight here, maybe knight to e4 was the idea on the next move, so the other knight can take the f6 square. But as Carlsen goes queen to c2, now the e4 square is nicely covered by white. And here is a very funny moment, well, not in this game. Here Levon captured on g3 because he wants to play c5, and you cannot play c5 as your bishop here on d6. Sorry about that, the coloring on my laptop is impossible. You can play c5 as the bishop on d6 will be hanging, but there actually is one game in the database where c5 was played in this position. White just played bishop captures on d6. And that's it. So it's amazing what you can find in the database when you're looking. Bishop captures on g3. Of course, Levon will not play c5. With h captures on g3, now Magnus gets the semi-open h file for his rook, and h6. Of course, now the h7 pawn was pressured. With rook to h4, Magnus losing his previous game to Fabiano, now really wants to get back into the game, so a very nice rook lift, again covering the e4 square, and maybe he can use it for attack later on. Maybe he's going to castle queenside, bring the other rook over to h1, maybe even king e2 is an idea, who knows what can happen. With c5 by Levon, and now knight to e5, with rook to c8, now developing the rook on a nice c-file that the white queen occupies, and f4 now strengthening the knight on e5. With a6 by Levon, and now a4, preventing b5, and now finally c captures on d4 as the c pawn is pinned. With e captures on d4 by Magnus, and now knight captures on e5, with f captures on e5, and now knight back to d7. So Magnus was able to clear some defenses in front of Aronian's king, and now knight to f3. And now a lot of ideas are possible. You could castle queenside, you could play something like king f2 and then bring your rook over to h1. There are a lot of ways you can play this, but one thing is for sure, Magnus' king is still in the center, and Levon wants to open up the position. So f6, Magnus captures with e captures on f6, queen captures on f6, and now rook to f4, just attacking Levon's queen. Queen back to e7, and now bishop to h7 check. Magnus wants Levon's king to go to h8. Now he has ideas of knight h4 followed by knight g6 check, and winning the queen. There are a lot of light square weaknesses around the black king. But that unfortunately it doesn't work for Magnus. Here Magnus has two good safe options. That's either to castle queenside or just to trade rooks. Rook captures on f8. But Magnus goes for knight to h4 nonetheless. And here Levon says, oh no you don't. Here Levon punishes Magnus's insolence, and well, feel free to pause the video and you're welcome to try and find what black can do to punish white in this position. While I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. You are about to beat the world champion, for the second round in a row. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, here Levon played rook captures on f4. And now Magnus doesn't have a choice here. He has to go for knight to g6 check and trap the queen. Fork the queen, but it doesn't work. Magnus played knight g6 check with king captures on h7, knight captures on e7, with a discovered check from here, but here is the move Magnus most likely missed, rook to e4. It blocks check and delivers check to Carlsen's king, and the problem is if you move the king, and this is the whole point of the queen sacrifice, for example, if king f2, rook e8 wins the knight. This is what you had to see if you found rook captures on f4. If you didn't, then, well, you have a it was a good idea, but you also have to calculate everything. So here, all of the squares that the knight can go to are covered. There we go. The knight cannot go to any of these squares. The king covers g6, and the rook and king and, well, rook and bishop cover the back rank. And the knight is trapped. Whatever you play, let's say rook e1, you're just going to go rook captures on e7, the knight is lost, and let's say a trade here can happen. But then you have a bishop, a knight, and a rook for the queen, which is in itself really terrible. But not only that, Levon has a protected pass pawn on e4. And on top of that, his king is very well protected by the pawns. So this is unplayable by white. After rook to e4 check, Magnus saw that if he plays king to f2, the game is over. He decided to go for queen captures on e4. He gave back the queen, and he will recapture the rook on c8. We have d captures on e4, knight captures on c8, we have bishop captures on c8, and now both players have 6 pawns. Magnus has a rook, but Levon has a bishop and a knight. So, of course, a bishop and a knight are better than a rook. But who knows? You know, the game is still young. Anything can happen. With b4 by Magnus, and now king to g6. Levon now wants to get his king in the center of the board. We have c4 and king to f7. And here Magnus plays b5, which is... we're going to talk a bit more about this b5 move at the end of the game, but it is a very important, especially for how Magnus was feeling at the moment. For example, if a5, then captures, then you have this rook controlling the 5th rank, and you have these nice pawns controlling all of the squares in front of them, and you keep the bishop and the knight at bay. So you're still playing this game. However, after this b5 move by Carlsen, Levon played e5, creating more weaknesses. We have d captures on e5 and now a5, completely blocking Carlsen's pawn structure on the queen side. Now he's going to get the king in there, capture on e5, and then he's going to go deal with the queen side pawns. We have rook to d1 by Carlsen, and now knight captures on e5. We have rook to d4, and now not even bothering with bishop to f5 to guard the d4 pawn, but rather bishop to e6 by Levon. We have rook captures on e4, and now knight captures on c4. We have king to e2. Carlsen starts improving the position of his own king, and now knight to d6. Attacking the rook, rook to f4 check, king to e7, and now king to d3. But here, Levon just played knight to b7, and yes, it was in this position on move 35 that Magnus Carlsen resigned the game, as there was nothing more to do here. Next, whatever Magnus plays, let's say king d4, knight c5 is coming, attacking the pawn, and if king c3, so the rook defends the pawn, bishop b3, you're now going to gobble up the pawns here, start pushing the pawns on the king side. There's nothing white can do here. Carlsen knows this, and of course he resigned, and a well-fought game and a well-deserved victory for Levon Aronian in this matchup against Magnus Carlsen. So this is what I mentioned, and the point is that at the end of the game, Levon had about 2 minutes on the clock, Magnus had almost 10 minutes, 9 minutes something. So it's very strange. For example, if Magnus played this game, to equally without missing anything, without blundering anything, without missing that idea of rook captures and f4, most likely in that position where he played a5, he might, he might find b5 with so much time on the clock, as he's a very good endgame player. But here, I think it was more of a case that he lost to Fabiano in the previous round. Now he missed rook captures and f4, and he just gave up on the game altogether. And with that kind of mindset, it's more than enough for Levon to clinch a full point. But yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it, as a lot of you have requested it. It's it's 35 moves, but I do consider it to be a miniature, as after rook captures on f4 with perfect play, it's basically a game. But with perfect play, that's not always the case. But yeah, I would like to thank Mark Sutherland, Jesse Bergstrom, and Leoson Hawaii for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this very nice tournament, checking up on your suggestions, which are always lovely, such as this one, and when I return home to my hometown, continuing the Capablanca saga. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.